What's up? Welcome in Fishbain and Jahns. That's right. Hoge is out of here. He's somewhere driving back home from, I don't know what, Minnesota, Wisconsin, somewhere north, right, Kev?
If you did a "Where in the World is Adam Hoge," Wisconsin and Minnesota, you're probably correct.
Usually a safe pick
Yeah,
on the
if
Carmel
it's not,
football fields.
yeah,
But yes, he is on his way back from a wedding this weekend. After mocking you for all your weddings, he was at a wedding this weekend. Oh,
yes, we gotta talk about this.
you have a wedding, you
I do have
liar.
a wedding. I did lie.
Thursday wedding.
Yeah,
What is up with that?
Thursday wedding. How about that?
I don't like that. Do you like that?
I mean,
Can you be honest right now?
okay, so I will be honest with you. Um, when it comes to, I obviously don't like fall weddings because I don't know if our listeners know this. Our weekends in the fall are very busy,
Very.
right? So if you want to have a wedding on a Thursday, especially a non NFL Thursday, although I would like to watch Penn State Purdue on Thursday night, I'm okay with that because, it's not like if this was a Saturday night wedding, Johns, you got Notre Dame, Ohio State Saturday night. I want to watch that. If this was Thursday night next week, we'd have, the NFL season opener. So I'm okay with it.
But it's a Thursday night wedding. You
I
can't
know.
like get
Listen, you'll learn when
full
you get.
wedding mode. The Friday
Yeah.
morning comes fast. You have kids, another kid on the way. It's just
Yeah, well, listen, you'll learn when you get older and you have kids that these night, sometimes you just get a little tired. It's all right to take it easy. A
true.
little
All right.
Thursday night celebration.
If you say so. Nah, I'd roll my eyes at that friend,
That's fair.
whomever he or she is. Anyway, this is not a wedding podcast. The wedding segment of this episode is over. I'm Adam Jahns. That is Kevin Fishbain. You know him as the Fishman. Follow him at K Fishbain. You know me at Adam Jahns. Read us at theathletic.com where we have a 53-man roster projection. Get it while it's still good. It's 10:08 on, was it Monday morning?
Yeah.
I give it maybe 12 hours of shelf life before it changes. It is cut week. Everything has to be done by 3 p.m. Tuesday tomorrow. But we'll get to that. We'll talk about the 53-man roster here in the roster segment of this podcast. Again, read us at theathletic.com. Get the Hoge and Jahns merch at obviousshirts.com. Watch us on YouTube. And even read Adam Hoge and allchgo.com. I know you know where to follow him.
Can I give a quick apology to our YouTube viewers?
Yes.
I do not have the mic stand this week.
They were so excited that you did last
I,
week.
I I I was able to get the mic stand up and running last week, and I will continue to use it. I had to shift podcast recording locations this week, and just didn't bring the mic stand with
You
me.
have a guest room podcast going today.
We're just gonna. It's an undisclosed location.
Looks like a guest room.
It's a room. It could be my house. It could be someone else's house. It's an undisclosed location, but
Okay.
that's where. But no mic stand this week. I will bring it back next week.
Okay. Good. We'll talk about this preseason. It's
Yes,
over.
yes, 3-0,
Let's start there. I want to throw you some
undefeated.
stats. Yeah, I want to throw you some stats from this preseason. And that was, we'll call it a record, but it's a stat. The Bears go 3-0 this preseason, beating the Chiefs, Seahawks, and Browns. What does Kevin Fishbain think about this?
Well, big picture. You know what's funny? Have you been watching Hard Knocks at all? Have you got?
No.
But you've watched it in the you've
Yeah,
watched
I
it in the
have,
past,
yes.
right? And when you watch Hard Knocks, you're reminded how much the coaches want to win the games, right? So like there was, Hard Knocks, the Lions have had a couple close games, and you can see it on the sideline, the way the coaches and players are they want to win. And so I think sometimes it's easy for us to forget that because it's true. It really like the wins and losses don't matter in the grand scheme of things. Somebody pointed out to me on Twitter the Bears were, I think, 0-4 the year they went to the Super Bowl with Lovey, and they were 0-4 in the preseason. But like I think it matters, especially to new staff, to say, hey, something's working. We're executing properly. Backups, third string, starters, whoever it is. So I think to Matt Eberflus, it probably means something in the moment, but obviously it's not going to necessarily. We don't know yet how much that's going to correlate to the season. I don't think it's going to correlate to the record during the season, but I do think there are good things they can take from those 3 wins that could, help them out when the regular season gets underway.
Sometimes I just think of the opposite. If they went 0-3,
Bingo. Yep.
there's like outrage. Like, oh, they don't have talent. Where's the receivers? The offensive line, it still sucks. Who's Justin Fields going to throw to? Why does he suck? He did not suck this preseason. I think of the opposite. Different circumstances with that Bears team. They were years into the Lovie Smith regime. Years. You knew you had Hall of Famers. Brian Urlacher. You could make the cases for Olin Kreutz. You can make the case for Lance Briggs. You can make the case for Charles Tillman. You knew what you had there. You had Mike Brown still. You knew what you had with that team. This is year 1 for Matt Eberflus. And I just think about there's like a culture shift that had to take place going from Matt Nagy to Matt Eberflus. And you see it in the preseason. 2 years ago, Matt Nagy basically said, screw you preseason. I'm not playing my guys. And then we saw what happened. Quarterback controversy followed. Mr. Trubisky wasn't ready. Doesn't take that next step. Matt Nagy 2.0. And here we are with Matt Eberflus. So I think just in terms of getting that culture ready, having that culture shift, successful preseason for Matt Eberflus.
And I think the hits philosophy, I thought stood out again in Cleveland. Like you can go to Justin Fields getting hit late and the guys rushing to his defense, a stark change from what happened last year when he would get hit, something Ryan Poles talked to you and me about the day he got introduced to House Hall. That was something he noticed last year. And then just like, and I'm watching for it now, Jahns, after hearing Sam Mustipher talk to us last week about how he, talk about a guy who has always embraced a hits philosophy. And he got marked for loafs against Kansas City. So he was like, what am I doing wrong? And when you keep that in the back of your mind and you're watching this team, now, I don't know if this is going to continue if they're 5-9 in December, but you see the way they're sprinting to help each other out. You see the way they're sprinting to the ball at the end of a play. And I think that can help if there is a missed tackle. It's going to help on defense. I think on offense, it's going to keep, like, you can see that they're buying into it, that they get it. And again, I don't know what that means win-loss wise, but I think it's a good sign for what this team is trying to build.
Competent and functional are 2 words I keep using over and over and over again.
I haven't heard those words in a while when talking about Chicago Bears.
Yes. I don't want to overrate them going 3-0 in the preseason, but I do think it carries weight. I do think there's significance with it. And general thoughts, maybe their back of the roster is more talented than the Chiefs. Maybe the back of their roster is more talented than the Seahawks, who may have a whole bunch of other problems, by the way. And then I don't care if the Browns didn't play all their starters. The Bears offense did what they were supposed to do then. Be the better team and look like it all the time. And they were that in the first half.
Yeah. All right, you're going to bring up Justin Fields stats, right?
Soon.
Okay. Because I think, like, when you go through the whole preseason and you look at the way that they, like, the discipline was there too, right? Like, not very many penalties. Not very many I think they had the one pre-snap penalty maybe in Cleveland. They had the holding penalty, but they showed the discipline. My big takeaway, Jahns, looking at this from a macro perspective, is I think this team's gonna be competitive, and that was something that you can't say about the last couple of years under Matt Nagy. Like, there were games where they just were not competitive, and it was the same thing the last 2 years under John Fox. They were not competitive, and you see signs of a team that does not have the personnel that stacks up with the rest of the league. That still is a big question at some important positions, including the most important position. But you can see that even if they're, touchdown plus underdog, that they're going to find a way to keep games interesting, like that first John Fox year, right? And in 2018, obviously they had a great year, but I just think that if I'm going to go full like glass half full with what does a 3-0 preseason mean, I think that they're building something that they can stay in games, and I don't think they're built. They don't have enough talent yet to have a winning record in those one-score games yet. But I think they'll be in enough of them, and sometimes a coin flip game can help you out.
It means more than an 0-3 preseason, especially for a first-year staff. And I want to complete my thought when I say competent and functional. That applies to this coaching staff. Luke Getsy, Alan Williams, Andrew Janocko. This coaching staff, like in terms of like first impressions, my first impressions with this coaching staff feel more positive just in terms of building an identity, what this team wants to be, than the changes that we covered previously from Trestman to Fox to Nagy. Like they know what they want to be. They're not going to grow into some identity like you heard like Mark Trestman about growing the man and all that stuff. Like, no, Matt Eberflus knows what he wants this team to be. And you see all the coaches in line with it. Competent and functional. All right. Stat number 2. 23 for 30, 243 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Justin Fields' production in the preseason. Thoughts?
I mean, I think you can isolate just what he did against Cleveland. 14 of 16 in that game. He said afterwards, he was asked, turning point or just preseason. He says turning point. But to me, what was more important was what Matt Eberflus said. There was a question kind of mentioning that Cleveland didn't play all its starters, but there were several starters in the field for Cleveland's defense on Saturday night, and how he balanced that. And Eberflus said, all we can do is look at the tape. Like, we can't speculate what's going on, what the Browns are trying to do. All they can do is they called a play. This is what Justin Fields is supposed to do on that play, and this is how he executed. And I'm guessing, we're going to talk to Luke Getsy. We're recording this Monday morning. We're going to hear from Luke Getsy in a few hours. And I'm guessing that they came out with a really high grade on Justin Fields when it came to what they were asking from him. And we saw the way this offense is going to help him out, get him on the move, I saw more open pass catchers, I felt like, on Saturday night, right? That we saw in the past 2 years.
You telling me scheme can help create space for your receivers?
A little bit, but I come back to what you brought up earlier, Johnsy. What about the alternative, right? Like, I tweeted those stats, and a lot of people were excited, but you also had a lot of people saying, well, it's just a preseason, it's just a preseason. Well, what if he was 2 for 14? I think you got to keep coming back to it, because if you could say it's just a preseason, and there is obviously that caveat. It's important to note that and put that and keep that in context. But if Justin Fields was bad, would you just ignore it and say, oh, it's just a preseason? No. You would say it is just a preseason, but we've got to notice these struggles. So I'm going to say it's just a preseason, but he did what he was supposed to do, and he did it extremely well. He was accurate. He was poised. I used this word in my story that, unfortunately, a Matt Nagy word. Unfortunately, I say for the Matt Nagy haters out there, he was convicted in his throws, right? Like, he was decisive. The throw to Ryan Griffin, when Dante Pettis got open, the ball was on the money. And then, like, people might look at him, the Cole Kmet throw. Well, Cole Kmet was wide open. He still's got to recognize that
quickly,
and make the throw. So I think that
you're allowed to score broken play, touchdown pass, touchdown.
You can be, I think, at a bare minimum, it gives Fields and the offense a lot of confidence over these next 2 weeks.
Yes.
And that's important. And I think you can look at it and say, okay, there's something building here, but also note that it doesn't mean he's going to be Joe Burrow. But you saw the positives, and I'll keep coming back to it. It's way better than the alternative.
The entirety of it, so 30 pass attempts. Like, that's a full game that he played, basically. If you put all 3 preseason games together, just play the first half against the Browns, and then you had the first quarter action against the other teams. But in terms of entirety, snaps, pass attempts, that's a full game. Now I want to go back to something that Nate Tice brought up on our previous podcast not too long ago. Like, the Chiefs, they blitzed them. they threw different things at him. This was not some vanilla attack. Even if it's some of the most basic blitzes that the Chiefs are going to throw at teams, it was still a blitz. Still had to be recognized. Seahawks did some things too. And both of those teams had starters in. Just like you said, maybe not their full starting cast, but they had starters in various places. Let's not forget, Michael Schofield getting beat by Chris Jones and getting a sack in Justin Fields. Like that happened. Chris Jones is an all-pro defensive tackle for the Chiefs. So don't give me that. It's the preseason. Starters weren't playing. There were starters playing in all 3 games against Justin Fields in the offense. Second stat, Roquan Smith, 0 snaps. What do you think?
I mean, all right, I'm going to go again. You're allowed to have 2 separate thoughts on this, right? Thought 1, I'm not going to say it means I'm not going to extrapolate this to think that he's not going to have a good regular season. But I wanted to see him play. You wanted to see him play. And I'll say this. Matt Eberflus has been so reticent to give any information about player availability for preseason games. Why? I have no idea. Who cares? It's a preseason game. He said that they expected Roquan Smith to play. And regardless of the decision for him to sit, which was probably a smart decision to be cautious, that told me they wanted him to play. They wanted to see him out there. They wanted to see him in live action in this defense. So I think there's no way to look at that other than disappointing in the moment that he didn't play. But I don't want to necessarily say it's going to portend poorly for his entire season. I just think that they wanted to see him out there and he couldn't play.
He's had 1 live, fully padded, full go practice in this defense. Last Tuesday. That's it. Looked good. First place, smashing David Montgomery in the backfield. Looks good. But you can't blame the Bears for wanting to see him more. I feel like I've been fairly consistent on this point. They still want to see what he could do in this defense. That applied to the preseason. Alan Williams made it very clear that he wanted Roquan Smith to play too, I thought. Didn't play officially out with tightness. That's what Ryan Poles told the broadcast, right? That Roquan Smith, before the game, experienced some tightness in some area of his body, and that was it. That was the reason he sat out. I don't think it's alarming, but not good either.
No, I put him in my fallers category in risers and fallers, and it might have been a little harsh, but again, like they wanted him to play, and he wasn't able to. And all that matters in the end is he good to go for week 1, and can he play 17 games and play at a high level? And if he does, great. We'll always forget that he didn't play in the preseason. But we're not there yet. And right now we have nothing else to do but kind of look in the moment.
One last stat for you, and let's stick with snap counts. Tevin Jenkins, 53 snaps at right guard. Is he your starter week 1 against the 49ers?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say here's the thing, Jahns. If he's not the starter, then the starter is not on the team right now. And you and I have talked about this. I wrote this. Like, I expect the Bears to be very open to bringing somebody else in the offensive line in the next 48 to 72 hours. And even through Labor Day weekend when you can make some trades. Now, I don't see a Josh Sitton situation being created, someone at that level, but I think that Ryan Poles is going to keep his options open. So I think it's either right now, my bet would be Tevin Jenkins or player to be named later.
I think he's earned the right to stay there. Unless you're bringing in a Pro Bowler like Josh Sitton.
Right. It'd have to be an established starter in this league who becomes available. Yes. Which is like the Josh Sitton thing was totally unlikely. So yeah, I'm with you. I do think right now it's his job.
Josh Sitton came in right guard. Kyle Long goes to right tackle. Right, that was like the week before the season.
And Cody Whitehair goes to center, a position he had never played.
Yes.
By the way, I've said this theory to you off air. I'll say it on air. My theory is if they never sign Josh Sitton and Cody Whitehair begins his career at guard, that he would have been more than just a one-time alternate Pro Bowler.
Yes.
Regardless of where he's at in his career now and what he is as a player now, I've always thought that if they didn't screw around this position the week before his first NFL game, that if he had just stayed at guard the whole time, he'd be
Well, that's a good point. Like things are supposed to be fluid with new teams or
rebuilding,
new decision makers, new coaching staff. They're supposed to be fluid. Things are supposed to be in flux. But that was like almost too much.
Yes. It's one of those things where in the moment you kind of just like write about it and it's happening. You kind of note that it's a big deal, but then you sit there and this is 6 years ago and you're like, what were they thinking? So, but yeah, I think that, Tevin Jenkins had a rough, the first snap or second snap of the game on Cleveland. But then he really settled in and I think he's just going to keep getting better. And the best case scenario for the future of this team is that he is your right guard starter for the future, that he really can handle that spot. So I think that's something the Bears probably prefer, but I also think that they have to kind of keep their options open too.
I just keep thinking what's Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham thinking? Two former offensive linemen. The work's not done, but like going back to the point about how fluid things can be, they've stuck with Braxton Jones, Cody Whitehair, Sam Mustipher, Tevin Jenkins, and Larry Bourne for a bit now. It's been a couple weeks. 2 preseason games.
Yeah, and they really haven't, they had opportunities to bring in bigger name offensive linemen. The biggest name they brought in all offseason was Lucas Patrick.
Who's going to obviously shift the makeup of that line when he comes in and replaces Sam Mustipher, but at least your other 4 are in their continuous spots.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. And so we're actually going to hear from the GM and assistant GM later this week. And I'm sure a lot of talk's going to be about the offensive line because, they feel like they found something in Braxton Jones, which is great. Did they find something in Tevin Jenkins at right guard?
He looked good. That film.
Yeah. I mean,
guys on the ground, man.
You see we saw that at Oklahoma State. That's why, when the Bears got him, we understood it. And then we just never saw it last year because he didn't play. He got hurt. So, but I kind of think he's maybe fits better for them inside.
Yeah. Helix Sleep is a premium mattress brand that provides tailored mattresses based on your unique sleep preferences. The Helix lineup includes 14 unique mattresses, including a collection of luxury models, a mattress for big and tall sleepers, and even a mattress made just for kids. This is what you do. You take the Helix Sleep Quiz, and in a matter of minutes, you get the perfect mattress just for you. Better yet, Helix lets you test out the mattress. That's right, test out the mattress. They offer a 100-night risk-free trial. Try out your new mattress, see how your body adjusts, and if you don't like it, you can return it for a full refund. I took the Helix Sleep Quiz and I got matched with the Midnight Luxe mattress. It's the perfect blend of soft and firm. I sleep great on my back and side. I know I'm sleeping well too because I have more energy in the morning. I also fall asleep right away, which is always good. Delivery was fast and easy, but don't take my word for it. Helix Sleep has over 1,200 5-star reviews. Helix also supports military, first responders, teachers, and students by giving them a special discount on their website. So here's the deal. Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattresses and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helix.com/Adam. With Helix, better sleep starts now. That's helix.com/Adam. Warm weather is here. It's hot, humid in Chicago, and you know what that means, hot, sleepless nights. I recently found a way to stay cool at night so I don't wake up all sweaty and sticky though. Since I started using Miracle Brand self-cooling bed sheets, I stay comfortable all night long. Did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Brand self-cooling bed sheets. Inspired by silver-infused fabrics made by NASA, Miracle Brand makes temperature-cool regulating bedding so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. So go to trymiracle.com/Adam to try it today. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Be sure to use our promo code ADAM at checkout to save 40% and get 3 free towels. And Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle brand. Go to trymiracle.com/Adam and use the code ADAM to reclaim your free 3-piece towel set and save 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Adam. All right, so this part of the conversation of the Fishbain and Jahns podcast could it only be good for the next 12 hours. Kev, let's talk about our 53-man roster projections. We know players will start getting calls like now about getting cut. This is the time of year. They used to do it. I like the way they're doing it now, like on a Monday, Tuesday, as opposed to like over Labor Day weekend. Remember that? Like you'd be at like barbecues and stuff. Like, oh my gosh, like who got cut? That guy really?
Yeah, I'd be sitting at Ryan Field trying to catch, trying to take in Northwestern versus University of Ohio, and
just ruining your day. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
no, I like it this. I like it this way too. Yeah. Let's. Yeah, we know the quarterbacks, right? We're keeping 2.
Yeah. So if you haven't read it yet, we have a 53-man roster projection up on The Athletic. Read it. Go through it while we're going through it right now. So we'll go through position by position. Quarterback's pretty easy. Justin Fields, Trevor Siemian.
And then you bring in a third on the practice squad.
Yes. Running back.
It could be Nathan Peterman, by the way.
Could be.
On the practice squad.
Could be. Why not?
Yeah.
Running back. David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, Treston Ebner, Darrington Evans, and Kari Blazingame. The fullback.
Yeah, 5 running backs. I feel like in some recent years they've only kept 3, but you have the fullback now, and I think Darrington Evans is a key special team guy. He was one of the first players Poles signed. Kind of gives you a sense of what the front office thinks of him. Jahns, we don't know what Treston Ebner's injury is, and like that's just something to kind of keep an eye on as we get closer to week 1. I know he fumbled, but Demontre Tuggle kind of looks like somebody you want to have on the practice squad.
True.
So let's see if the Bears can get him there.
And when we were debating the 5 running backs, I just kept going back to the thought that their identity is going to start with this running game being physical. So you're going to need backs. You're going to need guys. They like Ebner. Like you said, they signed Evans early.
And these guys are going to be key in the passing game, too. We saw it on Saturday night. Herbert had a catch. Blazingame had a catch. We know what Montgomery can do as a receiver. And Ebner, that was his calling card at Baylor.
Wide receiver. Now,
here where
it's extremely fluid.
Should we start with the locks? Who are the locks?
Okay. Darnell Mooney, Equanimous St. Brown, Byron Pringle, Velus Jones Jr. So those are your 4 locks. Most teams keep 6.
And 2 of those guys are hurt.
So you need guys to play.
So let's explain what we did with N'Keal Harry. You go ahead and explain this part.
He has to be on the roster in order to go on injured reserve. So he makes the team on Tuesday. By Wednesday, he's an IR.
And he has to miss a minimum
every year.
Miss a minimum of 4 games. That's with the new rule.
And within his injury, it looks like it.
Yeah, and that should time up. And like they traded for this guy. It seems like they like him, and I think they want to see what he can do. They're not ready to give up on him.
Agreed.
So he makes the 53. I think this is where. So you and I have been very consistent about Simba Webster as a guy that like we see him starting with special teams. Every unit, he's there. And that's why he makes the team. The question is, did Dante Pettis do enough? Justin Fields mentioned Dante Pettis after the game too, as one of the guys he's gotten a good rapport with. Did Pettis do enough to make the team? And is Webster the type of guy that you can go bring back later if you want?
Dante Pettis was returning punts.
He was. Like I think I know we had Webster, not Pettis, but I could kind of go either way there. I just think it's important that I'm like preparing fans that if Webster makes a team, people got to remember how important he is to special teams. And that would be why.
Yeah, I think that's our surprise decision. Like Webster over Tajay Sharp.
And
Isaiah Coulter.
the problem with Tajay Sharp is he's been hurt. So I just don't know what you just don't know what to do with a guy like that. Also, you have to remind yourself too, Tajay Sharp was available and what they signed him in June. Same with
Great point.
Pettis.
Great point.
So, like, how worried are you about some of these guys potentially getting claimed elsewhere?
You're not. You shouldn't be.
You might be able to be a little flexible with these guys.
And even if this is gonna sound, but like even if they are okay, they got to be on the 53-man roster of another team. I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
It
this
just
happens every.
Yes.
I was talking
about the 5th and 6th receivers here.
Yeah, and we're gonna get this with the offensive line and some of the other positions. Every year there is some rookie or some preseason all-star that gets cut, and everyone panics. Oh my God, he's gonna get claimed, and almost always they don't get claimed. Alex Bars a couple years ago, Thomas Graham Jr., Ryan Nall. Like we were talking about this during training camp the other day. I remember David Bass was somebody that they cut and were hoping to bring him back, and he got claimed. This was 2015. Like, and there may be somebody else that I'm missing over the years. I'm sure one of our listeners can correct me, but most of the time, the bottom of the roster, a lot of the time, these guys end up coming back to practice squad.
How long did David Bass last in the league after that?
I like David Bass.
He bounced around after that. Let's not forget he was claimed off waivers by the Bears.
That's right. That's right. The Bears, yes.
We're going back to the first couple of years of we're still in the Phil Emery era, I believe. All right, let's keep going.
Offensive line. I've got a question.
Tight end.
Oh, sorry, tight end. How could I forget?
Pretty easy. Cole Kmet, Ryan Griffin, James O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah, the only question here is, does Chase Allen or Jake Tongas show you enough on special teams that they're worth keeping? I would argue, just going back to our previous point, you could get those guys to the practice squad.
Agreed. Offensive line.
Here we go.
Lucas Patrick, Cody Whitehair, Tevin Jenkins, Larry Borum, Braxton Jones, Riley Reef, Michael Schofield, Sam Mustipher, Jatiri Carter. That's 9 offensive linemen on your first 53. I think the surprise here, maybe because I think most teams like to keep their draft picks on their roster, like Zachary Thomas. Do you keep him over like a Michael Schofield?
I just don't think Zachary Thomas has shown like you would need it. There's got to be if there's a GM in the league that was in love with him, but if there was a GM in the league that was in love with him, he would have been drafted before the Bears took him. You would think. So, but I think the Schofield thing's interesting, Johnsy. He played late into that game. He came his first days here, or maybe not his first day, but he eventually was running with the ones, and that changed quickly. I don't know.
How about this too? To your Sharp point, he was available even later in the process, like days before training camp opened. Michael Schofield was unsigned,
and there was a lot of excitement, and for obvious reasons. He's an established player,
local kid,
got the local connection, great story. But you just got to see who he's playing with in the last preseason game, and you wonder if there's somebody they want to claim, if there's somebody they want to trade for. I would guess he's the odd man out. Also, I want to throw out this. Let's credit Sam Mustipher for, he comes into camp as a backup right guard. Patrick gets hurt, and it's Doug Kramer who gets the first shot, right? Mustipher goes back to center, his natural position, and I think obviously Kramer's injury helped, clarify it. That you need Mustipher as your backup center, but I think he's done a nice job for this group all of camp, and and I think proving to the Bears that he deserves to be on this team.
Your backup center, backup guard.
Yep.
Versatility. I would not be surprised. I'll go on record. I would not be surprised if they cut Michael Schofield and kept Zach Thomas.
It's possible. It just again depends on how nervous they are about losing him through waivers.
Next position. Keep losing my thing here. Defensive line.
Another interesting one.
Robert Quinn.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Al-Quadin Muhammad, Travis Gibson, Dominic Robinson, Justin Jones, Angelo Blackson, Mario Edwards Jr., Kyrus Tonga, Mike Pennell Jr. That is 9 defensive linemen kept on the first 53 by you and me.
And I mentioned this to you, Johnsy, that the Colts last year kept 11. Now, I don't think the Bears can afford to keep 11, but they have guys that we didn't put on the roster that you could certainly make an argument for based on how they did in the preseason. You look at an undrafted rookie, Micah Treadway. Look at Trayvon Coley, the veteran they brought in camp has been really flashed this
good.
preseason. I think we've seen Pennell running with the ones with Angelo Blackson, out. So, I think the question is Blackson's been he barely has played this summer. Like, is that something? Is that a chronic thing that they're worried about? Do they keep an extra guy? But I do think that
Mario Edwards has basically barely played.
Barely played. So, there's room for some of these other guys to make the team. Sam Kamara has, flashed a little bit here and there. But again, I think those are guys you could probably get to the practice squad. It's an interesting spot. I mentioned this last week. This could be a deep position. It could be a position that we're sitting here in March thinking they got to go sign a couple defensive ends and another defensive tackle.
It's not a bad group though.
No, I think it's one of the better groups. Certainly one of the more experienced groups too.
Just in terms of players that they haven't been discussed enough. Like Tonga has won over this coaching staff. Is that not abundantly clear to you?
Oh yeah.
A lot of playing time with the ones. I think they like him a lot. Linebacker. We kept six off ball or stack linebackers, whatever you want to call them. Roquan Smith, Nicholas Morrow, Matt Adams, Joe Thomas, Jack Sanborn, and Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, I think the one we debated was Caleb Johnson. Do they leave him off and bring, if they need help in another position? But again, it comes to special teams. The guy was one of the best special teams players last year. He's been running with all the starting special teams units this year. So, and as has Jack Sanborn. So I think both of them stay. I don't know if you can get either of those guys to the practice squad. Sanborn's put up good tape this summer. Caleb Johnson's got a full season of special teams work. So I don't know.
Jack Sanborn's still undrafted. Caleb Johnson's still undrafted. I think your point from earlier that most players do clear waivers.
Yeah,
clear waivers. Like most players do clear waivers. Yeah,
they do.
But Sanborn would be the one if you're at Hallis Hall and you're debating which young guy not to cut out of fear of potential claims. Like you check the injury list, who's got injuries at linebacker? Like, what do we want to do here? He's been good not only in special teams, but he seems to get our defense too. What do we do here? Maybe we just keep him for now.
Yeah,
and Sanborn would be the guy.
And if they do need to pick one, Sanborn's their guy. Caleb Johnson's the Ryan Poles guy. Ryan Pace guy.
Would you be surprised if they cut either Matt Adams or Joe Thomas?
I would, just because I keep coming back to special teams. And with Matt Adams, he knows the defense so well. Here's the problem with this group. Can you talk about the drop-off after Roquan Smith and Nicholas Morrow? That is steep. And that's why I think you have to keep Matt Adams, because at least he has comfort in the system. And Joe Thomas has been in the league for a long time. But, man, this is a position I'm surprised that they didn't, do any more. They do have a lot of tape on Matt Adams from camp, so they can make that decision and decide if they find someone better. But I still think that they keep those guys.
Cornerback is an extremely interesting position.
You remember I texted you late Saturday night. I was like, can we just keep 3?
Yeah. Well, a lot of your decisions were based off what we were literally seeing against the Browns, right?
Yep.
Like Greg Stroman Jr. had a good game.
Recency bias. I gave him the last spot.
That was it. But that's
That stuff matters.
It's part of the evaluation. It's tape. It's live game tape. This strikes me as a position. Let me go through the names first. We kept 5, which is low for cornerback. Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Kendall Vildor, Duke Shelley, and Greg Stroman Jr. Obviously, the 2 big cuts are Tavon Young and Thomas Graham Jr.
I just like, what do you do with those 2 guys? We have not seen Thomas Graham Jr. once this summer. Tavon Young, he practiced twice. I don't even know. And Tavon Young had already lost. Like Thomas Graham Jr. was a starting nickel in minicamp. So if Kyler Gordon's your starting nickel, then Tavon Young's what, your third? And he hasn't practiced. So I just, look, if we show up to Hallis on Tuesday and both those guys are healthy, maybe they do make the team. I just,
You
like
almost wonder if their injuries other teams will wonder about them. Like, why haven't they practiced? We haven't seen them in a while. It's not like Tavon Young. Like, he got his big deal a couple years ago. It wasn't this year. Maybe you could get him back some way, somehow, if you have to go with the healthy 5, healthy 6 guys, if you want to use Lamar Jackson as that 6th defensive back.
Yeah, so it looked like they were rotating Stroman, Lamar Jackson, and Devontae Harris on Saturday night, and Stroman had the best game of those guys. I thought the other 2 played well too. I mean, they all had their moments. Kendall Vildor played well. It's amazing, Jahns, to think too that he is a lock when you look back to last year.
Oh, yeah. Another underrated storyline, just like Tonga. Yeah. Kendall Vildor has won over this coaching staff. I think it's like he's a scrappy, like kind of tenacious player in small spaces. I could see that completely endearing him to the way Matt Eberflus and Alan Williams once. But like, there's never been any questions about Kendall Vildor's want to when it comes to tackling. Like, he'll tackle, he'll hit, he'll throw his body around. I think that endears him to this coaching staff.
Yeah, I'll even throw another name. You go down to undrafted rookie Jalen Jones, who got a lot of run as a 1 nickel when Kyler Gordon was out. So they like what they saw there. I think he's been injured, so you got to factor that in. But so it's weird. They have a lot of options, but they don't, because like none of these guys are necessarily. Injuries. Yeah, so I think this is another position where keep an eye on the waiver wire. Keep an eye on who's available. They could bring in some extra help from the outside.
All right, these next 2 positions I think are pretty straightforward. Safety, we kept 5. Yeah, Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker as your starters. DeAndre Houston Carson as your special teams ace and number 1 backup. Elijah Hicks, the talented 7th rounder, and Dane Cruikshank as another special teamer. I think that 5 makes the team.
Yeah, I think Cruikshank might be the only, I don't want to say surprise. It's just he finally got healthy this past week. Played a lot on Saturday night, so we'll see what the way they evaluate the tape. But he's a veteran, helps on special teams, so I think you keep him. He certainly has a better resume than some of the corners we're cutting. Some of the other guys are cutting around the team, but look, John's safety could be one of the better position groups on this team.
Agreed. I think they have something in Elijah Hicks.
Yeah, I do too. I like the way he plays.
Yeah, like you could just see it.
Yeah, I mean, look, in 2 years, this could be Brisker and Hicks as the starting safeties.
Yes, 2 years. 1 year?
Ooh, not 1 year.
No. Yeah. Eddie Jackson's been good. And then you have the special teamers where you have Cairo Santos, Trenton Gill, Patrick Scales. No,
best position group on the team.
That's it. That's all they have on the roster.
Yeah. I joked about this before the training camp. Cairo Santos might be have the best shot at making the Pro Bowl of this roster.
He missed one. He missed one in Cleveland, right?
He did.
The left upright.
48-yard. Otherwise, before that, he had been automatic. Camp and preseason.
Get those misses in now. Trenton Gill's been really good.
Yes, another potential Pro Bowler. He might have a lot of punting opportunities.
I see what you did there. I think he's been good. He's been good. But again, take all of this. It's fluid, everybody. fluid. It's 10:48 a.m. on Monday, 10:49 now. Calls are happening. The Bears are building their waiver wire list of players they might target. So that's it. I like their 53. Obviously, you have questions at receiver, cornerback, two important positions. But, all in all, not as bad as you I'll say this. Not as bad as I thought it would be when training camp started.
No, I think we've seen some of these backups play well. And the thing is, receiver and corner were two of the bigger question marks coming in. And they still are. But I think injuries have really been the problem there.
I think what eases my concern, again, is the coaching staff.
Yeah.
I might be giving them too much credit, to be honest with you, but they seem to know what they want, and they're trying to find players to get what they want. And that in itself, in terms of identity, player evaluation, it's so important to have everybody actually on the same page. I'm not sure if they ever really were, no matter what they said in the previous regime.
Yeah. No, it's, again, at a bare minimum, good vibes. It's a team with good vibes right now in Hallis Hall.
3-0 preseason.
Speaking of good vibes, how about a shout out?
15 seconds or what? You doing it now?
Well, here's what I'm going to do. I want to shout out all of the Hoge and Jahns podcast teams. It was an undefeated week.
Oh, it was.
So your Dons had a big win to start their season.
Number 19, Willowbrook, yes.
Carmel, shout out special teams coordinator Adam Hoge. That came down to the wild final 2 minutes.
Did they win on a field goal?
They won by. I think they won by 3, but I want to say they scored a touchdown to go ahead.
Okay, all right.
My Highland Park Giants, obviously, emotional day at Walters Field, but they won their opener over Leiden.
To be an amazing win.
Yeah, so that was exciting, and then of course, my Northwestern Wildcats
winning in Ireland.
Fitz said they're going to have some good, clean Irish fun that night.
That means Fitz is rocking and rolling. 12 Guinnesses deep.
You think about the college football team. There's some guys who are maybe allowed to have some good, clean fun there that legally couldn't do it here.
It's true. The drinking age
on that football
18
team. Yes. So very excited about Northwestern's win over Nebraska. Run game looked great. Offensive line imposing their will. Maine South Peter Skoronsky, dominant at left tackle.
Top 10 pick coming.
Yeah. So shout out to the Hoge and Jahns podcast teams, all matters. I don't know how Ignatius did.
They lost to St. Pat's.
Oh no. We did not go undefeated then.
We'll get to that later this week. That's
for
St.
you
Pat's
to discuss with him.
At Notre Dame, the 25th ranked team in the Sun-Times rankings, at the 20th ranked team in the Sun-Times ranking this weekend. It's going to be crazy Friday night. We'll get to that later, though, okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Good vibes today on this podcast. 3-0 will do that. Thank you to Kevin Fishbain. You know the deal, everybody. We're on theathletic.com. Adam Hoge on allchgo.com. Follow us on Twitter if you're not. I don't know why you're not. If you're listening, hit that YouTube subscribe button. Get all our merchandise. I think the hats will be back soon. If you're looking for those hats, they'll be back soon on obviousshirts.com. Gav, thank you. See ya.